Hey you guys, I'm Lisa from theScore eSports and I'm here with Scarra. I know you guys are used to Scarra being behind the mic, but this time I'm going to put him in the hot seat and ask him about everything that has happened so far at Worlds and what's coming up. So the quarterfinals just wrapped up. We know the 4 teams that are going to make it to the semifinals. Surprisingly, or not surprisingly, all the Korean teams have made it: SKT, ROX Tigers, Samsung Galaxy, and H2K. So are you surprised that all the Korean teams made it and H2K has also made it?
Not at all. I think it's the least surprising thing. Group stage full of upsets, and the bracket stage is really easy to predict.
Well, the first bracket we know is SKT facing ROX, and this is probably the matchup many people thought we would see in the finals. What do you think, which lane or which position do you think is going to be the most vital in this matchup?
I think it's got to be Peanut. Sorry, the jungle.
Just Peanut.
I say Peanut because, group stage, 4 games in the group stage, he didn't play too well. And honestly, Smeb wasn't playing too well either for some of the group stage. However, I got really scared because Peanut played like in an insane series during bracket stage. And honestly, I think if the jungle difference is that big, Peanut does a great job of being able to snowball his leads. I think that's a really, really big point of contention.
What do you think it is with Peanut? Because we saw him play some great series, and then some series he wasn't really that impactful. So what is it about Peanut?
I think it was just a group stage. I think Korean teams are really unused to best of ones. Being able to adjust over a period of time is really, really nice, and it's something that all the teams have kind of developed in Korea. But best of ones is something that only like North American teams and EU teams had for a little bit. Even we don't have it anymore because it's just not a great format for I guess high tier competitive play.
Speaking of junglers, then on SKT side, we have the Blank versus Bengi conundrum. So how do you think SKT performs when playing with Blank versus playing with Bengi?
Usually the best way I see the two jungler dynamic is that Blank is maybe a more aggressive jungler, a jungler who's more prone to counter jungle, will take more aggressive positions, and Bengi is the enabler. He enables, and it doesn't just enable anyone, he enables Faker. He's really good at enabling Faker on a couple champions. I think the best champion he's the best player in the world on Nunu, and unfortunately it's not meta at this tournament, but also his Elise is insanely good, and probably the best Elise. If Bengi's playing, Elise will get banned, because that's the champion he's the most comfortable on. And so I think, honestly, I had a lot of worries about Blank, but his bracket stage game was super good too. So I don't know what it is, but I guess the Korean junglers just kind of popped off.
So in this match against ROX, do you think SKT would be better to play Blank or Bengi?
I think it's up to the coaching staff. I don't want to be like, they should play one or the other. I think that it's situational that maybe they can open it with one and switch to the other like they usually do, and I think that that's smart. You can get kind of a feel for the first game. It's not a best of one again. So if you throw away the first game, it's okay to be able to see, oh, do they play this? Do they prioritize this? How does the draft go? How did the players play out? I think it's up to the coaching staff afterwards to be able to adjust on the fly. No fee in coma.
It's fun watching games with Scarra because you get to hear his reactions in live. So one thing that you've said is really funny. You're like, why is Faker so good? So are you impressed with how Faker has been performing, and how impactful is he right now in the game?
I think the skill gap between him and the next best mid has shortened quite a bit. However, he brings a lot of intangible stuff into the game. He brings a lot of, well, I guess it's tangible when you look at the game. It's just pressure. So there's situations where where teams, if they don't know if they can win fights, just look to isolate Faker and just bulldoze him down. He's such a big threat. Everyone knows how good he's going to be if he's given free reign of the team fight. And so a lot of times, unless you can shut him down, even if you shut him down early, if he's 0-3 in lane, you still know he's gonna bring in an impressive performance. You know how I said Bengi enables Faker? I think Faker enables Bang. So he's part of the reason why Bang looks so good, because what other AD can have a mid laner that draws so much pressure like Faker does?
That's true. You brought up Bang, so let's talk about the bottom lane matchup. Well, obviously, we have Gorilla and Prey on one side, and then Bang and Wolf on the other side. So what do you think are we going to see when we see these two lanes butt heads?
I think Wolf is a little bit weaker in lane. But overall, I think Bang is the best AD at the event, actually.
Wow.
And partly of that, of course, is true because Faker is just so good. He's able to create a lot of pressure for him to work with. And I think that, but however, I think the ROX bot lane has better synergy, especially in lane. So it's going to be really, really interesting because the AD picks are kind of all known. Everyone's just picking Caitlyn. Everyone's just picking Jhin. And so I'm really interested if one of the ADs bust out maybe a more obscure pick, maybe a Jinx or even an Ashe. I haven't seen a lot of Ashe in this tournament. I'm wondering if she'll come back even after her nerfs.
Okay, now let's switch over to the other bracket. We have Samsung Galaxy and we have H2K, the only Western team left in this tournament. which lane in this matchup do you think is the most vital?
Ooh, this is kind of interesting. I don't know. I think it's going to be top lane. I'm pretty sure that Odawamne is just playing like an extremely good Worlds. His CS difference at 10 minutes was 22 before the games today. I think that he is probably the best Western top laner. And we saw the interview with Nofe and Reaper, the coach of C9 and the coach of Rox. Both Smev and Impact both said that Odawamne was the best laner they played against at Worlds. And that's really, really high praise for them to say that. I think that he's having a great showing, and he's the MVP of today's series. So I definitely think that if he's not controlled well, or if he gets Jace, he could just go off.
You bring up the Jace, and after seeing H2K play against Albus NoX, his Jace was crazy. In the case where Jace is not available for him, how impactful do you think he still is?
I think he's still really good. Like he doesn't lose lane if it's like a bad matchup. Like he'll more than likely just go even. And if it's a good favorable matchup, he'll push it to like almost its near limit. I think that he's just a very, very well balanced top laner. And he's one of the top laners who used to play Maokai. Like most top laners I know hated Maokai. But he was the type of person who's like, oh no, you really underestimate Maokai. I think Maokai is really, really good for these reasons. And I think that like that kind of mentality is really good because it means that not he sacrifices for his team. He can play with pressure, and honestly today he got all the pressure. But I know that next week against Samsung, maybe Forgiven and their bot side will get pressure, and I think he can play without pressure as well. He's kind of the full package top laner at the moment. I think probably the best top laner in the West.
A lot of praise for Odawamne. Now, we have to touch on the jungle matchup. There's Ambition, who's amazing, of course, and then there's Jankos as well. How do you think these two styles clash in this matchup?
I think Jankos is just First Blood God. So like he is actually the person who gets the most First Bloods at the event. He was tied with Stejos, but after today's series, he's by far the best and the I guess the bloodiest early game jungler. I think he really enables the rest of his team to function because everyone on the team wants to play aggressive. Everyone wants to win lane. I think that he wants to win the jungle early too. So as long as if he can isolate the other jungler, keep Ambition from impacting lanes, I think that the rest, it will go really, really well for H2K because H2K is the type of team that just wants to lane. If they can lane for 20 minutes, they'll just win the game because I feel like their laners are just so, so strong. However, I don't know relatively how good, for instance, Crown's going to play. I think Crown had a fantastic Worlds so far, but also Ryu is playing, I think, almost the best I've seen him play since like spring split or even like before then. So it's gonna be a really, really tough matchup. And I think that whichever jungler can take kind of the pressure or the early game lead can really run with the series.
You know, you brought up how laning is obviously really important. Forgiven, very known for his laning. The bottom lane matchup, we have Samsung. I know they have two subs, the Core JJ versus Wraith. Do you think which sub they play is going to impact how well the bottom lane does?
I think for sure they'll use Core because I think just generally Core lets their team function better together. I don't know what it is. It's probably some like behind the scenes dynamic, but it seems like with Core everything functions a lot smoother. I don't see Ruler get caught nearly as much. I think that Core and Ruler are playing very, very well, extremely well. They smashed the last series. I don't know if they can do that against Forgiven though.
Now, before I ask you for your predictions, because I'm sure everyone wants to know, I wanted to touch on the kind of picks and bans that we've been seeing so far in this tournament. One thing you brought up, you even tweeted it, you were like, I hate how first pick Caitlyn is now the new thing. So tell me about what Caitlyn, like the role that Caitlyn has been playing in this meta in this tournament.
Well, the bot laning phase before lane swaps were taken out of the game, I thought was pretty healthy, at least from the support angle. The AD angle probably had like 4, 5, 6, 7 picks that were viable. Now after the lane thing got swapped over and first tower's worth so much, 650 gold if you get it solo, the importance of laning and being able to get the first tower is so important that Caitlyn priority shot all the way up to the moon. So because of that, you can first pick Caitlyn on blue side and not be a detriment to your draft, and you can do it consistently, not just as like a pocket situation against a specific team that does it a lot. And so because of that, I hate it because I think that it really kind of neutered down the bot lane meta, and because laning is so important, the support meta that used to be really, that had like a pretty big barrier between melee supports as well as range supports, and honestly had a huge pool kind of narrowed into only laning range supports like Karma, like Nami, like Zyra. And Zyra comes back specifically for this situation. I think that what happened was actually kind of a big tragedy before Worlds because even though it allowed there to be more action early, it kind of like crushed some of the meta. Like it actually like stifled the bot lane meta to a point where like there's a lot less viable picks in my opinion.
How about if we move over to the mid lane? An interesting pick I noticed is the Aurelian Soul. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Korean teams, like whoever plays Aurelian Soul wins. And no one really knows how to play against the Aurelian Soul yet. What is your opinion on the champion?
I think Soul is just the best champ in the game. I think you can play against it as Ryze. I think it's the best pick, and to some extent Syndra as well. But the champion gives so much pressure early game, and since early game is essentially the entire game, you can snowball really, really easy off early game. And I talked to you how important it is for early junglers to create early pressure. Yeah. So because of that, Soul just became like the go-to pick because you just cheat lane. It doesn't matter if you're like the worst mid laner on the event against the best mid laner on the event. The best mid laner can't do that much against Aurelian Soul, at least early, and he's able to control the pace of the game going well into like the 12-minute mark.
Now, you mentioned before in terms of AD carries like the Jinx and the Ashe, but are there any sleeper picks in terms of champions? Or maybe you're surprised that this champion hasn't come up yet?
I actually did kind of expect like 1 or 2 Ashe games. I know Ezreal was going to come back with Jhin. I saw some Sivir already, but I really thought that there'd be another AD pick, like maybe more Jinx against Caitlyn. And I thought that Ashe did well against Caitlyn too. And so like if we're looking at pocket Caitlyn counters, like we might have to bring out that stuff. I know also really, really strangely enough, in the old Caitlyn before the rework, Varus did really, really well into it. I don't think we're gonna see it at this event, but it'd be funny if we did.
Possibly as a flex?
I'm not even sold.
Okay, now it's time for predictions. Let's go SKT versus Rox. Who's gonna take it and by how many games?
I think SKT's gonna win 3-2.
Also, it's gonna be close at least.
No, it'll be like the closest series. It'll be a very, very close series. Even if it's a 3-0, it'll be a close series.
And then Samsung versus H2K.
Oh, this one's a toughie. I think Samsung wins 3-2 as well. But it'll be very, very close. And honestly, depending on the form that H2K comes in with, and let's say like Jankos is playing really, really well, or Ryu is playing really well, or Odoamne is playing well, or just the whole team is like able to lane for the long period of time they want to lane by, they can just blow up in the game. Or the series, I should say.
Okay, you guys, those are Scarra's predictions. Be sure to let us know your predictions in the comments below. We're going to be in New York giving you full coverage, so be sure to stay tuned for that. And finally, if you guys want to look for more content, go to our channel at theScore eSports on YouTube and check out the app as well. I'm Lisa from theScore eSports, and we'll see you guys next time.